Hi everyone, welcome back to my art journaling channel. Today's prompt in my little advent journal is bird. And so I had this idea of making a little bit of a lace cut page for this prompt. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So I thought at first I'm going to start with a very pastely toned down kind of page, so not my usual bright colors. And I'm going in with some of my favorite colors and putting it onto the page and blending it out with a little bit of white to tone it down and make it more of a pastel color than a bright color. And I'm going to use purple, pink. I do add a little bit of orange. Now, as you know, I don't enjoy working with orange, but putting it next to pink really seems to help a bit with that. And I think also toning it down with the white really helped with me getting a bit more comfortable with having some orange on my paint. I'm also trying to just blend in where the colors meet, so it's more of a gradual blend and there's not a very harsh line. Here we go with the orange. So as you can see at the edge there, I've got a little strip of paper that I've cut before I started the video, because first I thought I would make it a bit of a tip-in page, but then I decided against it. But I did want that little strip of paper to have the same colors as on the paper, as on the actual spread, just for some continuity. So normally I would cut my pages I would make a lace cut page in black, but I wanted to try and make something a little bit more toned down, something a little colorful. So it was a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I really loved how this page turned out. I did struggle a bit with blending the blue and the orange together, but in the end we got there. Now I'm going in with a number stencil from Arlene's advent calendar for last year. I love a good number stencil. I think numbers on a page really just does something to the page. It really makes me happy. Okay, now I'm going in with exactly the same colors that I used on the page, except they are neon or fluorescent, and I'm mixing my paint with white. If you have never done this where you mix pink or your neon colors with white, I highly encourage you to do that. The color that comes from mixing white in there is so delicious. It's pastel and toned down, but it still somehow has that brightness of a fluorescent paint. It's just beautiful. If there's one thing that you can take away from this video today, that is to go and try and mixing your neons with white. So I'm doing that with pink, purple. I'm going to do it with orange and blue as well. So I'm sticking to the same colors that I had on the page originally, wiping it on with my finger, and then putting the stencil over the top and wiping it away with a wet wipe or a baby wipe. I'm also turning my stencil in all kinds of directions, so it's not too boring and all the same. And then I'm going in with the paintbrush and I'm making marks with that paint. I figured I had the paint there. It's such beautiful colors, so I'm not going to waste it. I'm rather going to use every drop that I can on my spread. Now I'm going in with orange, and as you can see, I'm sticking to my rule of thirds. So what I'm doing in one spot, I'm doing in two other spots. So there's always a visual triangle. Our eyes like to look at odd numbers, so it just makes the whole composition a little bit more visually pleasing if there's three spots of everything. I'm also drying my layers in between, so I don't move the layers underneath that I've done already. Adding the mark makings. I really liked how the marks added a little pop of something and gave some interest and more brightness. And I really liked not wasting the beautiful color that I had there on my palette. Okay, now I'm going to start bringing in that little piece of the strip at the edge there, and I'm going to keep doing that. You'll see throughout the video, just to make sure that it's looking the way that I want it to look. And again, not wasting any paint. I'm just taking whatever is left on my palette, whatever paint's left on my palette, and I'm just sponging it through that number stencil as well onto the little strip of paper to make sure I'm not wasting any paint, and also for some continuity. And then I decided I better do the blue as well, because that blue at the top was a little bit harsh, I think. 3 spots of blue. We have some builders here today, and we've had painters, and it's been a little bit chaotic, so doing a voiceover has been not the easiest thing. I hope you can't hear any of the background noise, but I had to get this done, otherwise it's never going to get done. Okay, now making sure everything's dry. And then I'm coming back in with my little strip of paper. And now for the fun part. I'm taking the deco screen stencil from Art by Marlene. And I did one lace cut page with this before. It was much smaller than this, but it was so effective, and I really wanted to do it again. So what I'm doing is I'm going to stencil through with white paint, just finding kind of where I want the border to be. And I'm just going to stencil through with white paint, making sure I cover the whole area that I want to be cutting. And then when I start cutting, I'm going to use my metal ruler and a sharp craft knife. Please make sure, if you want to do this, that you've got a really sharp blade in your knife. You don't want to do this with a blunt knife, because that's just going to tear your paper. So what I'm doing is I'm going through all the vertical lines, and I'm doing a cut on all of them. Then I'm turning my ruler, and I'm doing all of the diagonal lines. So it really goes fast this way, but I did struggle with the white paint, I must be honest, because normally I do this with black, and that's a little bit more contrast so you can see better. So eventually I ditched the ruler and I went in freehand. It took a very, very long time to do this cut, because the stencil is so tiny, but it was well worth it. If you want to do this, just take your time, maybe put on a podcast or a TV series, and just enjoy the process. So as I'm cutting, when I'm pushing the little bits out, I'm pushing them toward the back of the page or the paper, because if you're pushing it to the front, and if there's some bits that's still stuck, you're going to tear into the paint. So I find just pushing it back, and if there are little tears, at least it's at the back and you're not going to see it on the paint. Obviously, if you're going to be painting over this again, it's fine. Did manage to tear a huge big gaping hole in there, but it doesn't matter. I will show you how I fix that. This is where I changed my craft knife, because that one was getting blunt. So this one was just sharp enough to finish the rest of it. It feels a little bit tedious while you're doing it, especially because I was so excited to get the page done. But I'm glad I pushed through. Last few bits coming out. And there you go. Okay, now I'm going to go in with, oh, look at that, so pretty. I'm going in with some paint pens and just fixing up where the paint from the stenciling leaked underneath. In the end, it really didn't matter if I did this or not. I actually liked that little bit of a grungy feel with the white bits coming through. Then I'm taking a piece of transparency paper or transparency sheet. I don't know if you should call it paper. And I'm going to stick that at the back. I'm using double-sided tape. I'm not using glue for the main sticking part because I am scared that it's going to come off. So glue on the bigger bits. Tape on the bigger bits, and then I'll go in with glue on the smaller bits. I'm just kind of making sure that each little section there has some glue on it to keep it onto the transparency sheet, sorry. Don't you hate watching people pulling off tape? I find it so frustrating. Okay, now I'm going to stick the two of them together. First I thought I'd put the transparency at the bottom, but then I thought, no, it's probably going to be easier if I do it upside down. And I'm glad I did because I could get it fairly straight. I don't have any foam tape. I think that's what they call it. Yeah, I don't have any foam tape. But I did want that little window section raised up a bit. So I found a craft foam sheet, and then I put my tape on the back of the sheet, on the back of my little window bit, and then I put craft sheet over the top, and I added another strip of tape over that. So I'm kind of making my own craft foam tape, I think it's called. Sorry, can't find my words today. I had to dig through my stash to find this craft foam, and there was a moment where I thought, oh gosh, I'm just going to give it up and stick it down, but I really, really wanted to raise it up because I thought that would look really effective. So I persevered. I did pause the video until I could find it. And there you go. So the other thing that I also did is that little strip at the end there, I turned it upside down. So on my background, the blue is at the top, but on my little window, the blue is at the bottom. Just so there's some contrast between the two, and you can see that there's definitely two different parts of this page. Then my flamingo was having flat feathers at the end there, so I just made another little strip of my own craft foam tape just to prop her up. I did cut this flamingo's little white border around it out before I started the video, and I also edged the whole thing with an alcohol marker. I did that off camera because I don't think you want to watch me doing that. Then I found a little heart stamps from Marlene and added hearts to my page. Just adding some black really helps with contrast on the page. Okay, now I'm going to go in with some mark making stamps. I used a very light grey archival ink for the script stamp from Marlene. So you can't see it on camera, but you can actually see it on the page. It's really pretty. And then for the other stamps, I used another stamp set, and I used some neon paint pens to ink it up. And I'm still sticking to exactly the same colors that I had started off with. So I'm not introducing any other color other than black and white for contrast. Here I go with orange. Can you believe it? And later on I will go in with purple as well. I really like using purple on my pages, especially that neon purple. It really just makes everything pop. And then I started coloring in the hearts because they didn't stamp quite clearly. My paper is quite textured. It's like a watercolor paper, so the stamping didn't go too well. I thought I would just darken them up a bit, and I'm glad that I did. Then I thought the background there's not enough contrast between the background and the little window that I popped on there. So I thought Then we go in with some white mark makings, and I thought that that really helped to separate the two elements. I'm glad I did that. Going back with more mark making, I'm using like a stripy, almost like a barcode looking kind of stamp, and I'm cleaning off my stamp really well when I'm done, because obviously if the acrylic paint's dry on there, it's going to ruin the stamp. Going in with tiny sprinkly bits, hearts and dots, just to fill up that little space, and I'm bringing it down as well underneath the flamingo. And in hindsight, I could have probably done one or two more of the bigger ones, but I didn't. So it is what it is. I'm outlining all of the bigger ones, and I'm coloring the centers of all the tiny ones. And all the while, I'm just creating some more contrast with the black and white. Whenever you use bright colors on a page, it is really nice to add black and white to the page, just to make those colors pop. Tone them down, but also make them pop. It's a funny thing how that works. And then I pulled out some neon watercolors, and I'm just brightening up some of the bits on my flamingo, the yellow, pink and purple. I'm going to go in with a little bit of mark making with my pens. I'm going to brighten up the white bits and add some more. I'm going to darken the black bits, just add my own touch to it. And this is where my little window buckled a bit, because obviously now I'm heating directly on that transparency sheet, and the transparency does not love heat, but it did stay put, and it actually didn't make much of a difference to the page. It's still flat enough, and it looks really nice. Going into the shadowy areas with a black pen. This is an acrylic paint pen, and I'm also outlining all of the little flowers. I don't know if you really can see on camera how bright that flamingo is, but in real life she's really, really bright. I love how she turned out. Now I'm going in with my Stabilo All pencil. I'm imagining that the light source is on the right side, so she needs shadowing on the left side. I'm just going on the left side and adding shadow. I'm adding shadows underneath her feet as well, so she's grounded and not just floating in the air. And pulling up my tape from protecting my other page. And then I thought I would put a white quote in, but I actually chose to do a black quote just to balance out the hearts there and the black in her boots. Then it's also, there's also in theory 3 areas of black. And I'm also going to do a shadow with my Stabilo All pencil. I'm going around, and then I'm water activating it and just drawing it out a bit. And that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, tell your friends, and please come back for the next one. I really appreciate that you are here. Just a little bit more faffing before I go. You'll see at the end of the close-ups that you can actually see the dimension of that little window that's popped up, and I will show you a close-up as well on the video. Here we go. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.